this special interview for the Royal Welsh Virtual Business Show. I'm Gemma Casey, Natwest Cymru's Ecosystem Manager for Wales, and joining me is Emma Corfield Walters, owner of Bookish in Crickhowell. Hi Emma, thank you for joining me.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Emma, let's get started by you telling me a little bit about Bookish. What is it and how did it get started? How long has it been going?
So we've been on the high street in Crickhowell for 12 years this October. It started in a much smaller form, a couple of doors down in a small shop. We moved in 2017 to much larger premises. So we're now a bookshop. So we sell new books. We've got a cafe, we've got an event space, we've got a bar. And also we do a lot of community works. We do a huge amount of school events. We do quite big author events, and we support local festivals such as Abergavenny Food Festival and Green Man Festival. So anything to do with ideas, books and conversation, then we're pretty much there.
Yeah, sounds amazing. Tell me about its origins then, because you haven't always been in books, have you?
I haven't. No, I started a business back in 2022, specialising in surveying for hazardous materials, mainly asbestos, with a friend from university down in the southeast. And that took off really quickly. So we held a portfolio for London Fire Brigade, and we did a lot of work in the City of London, London Stock Exchange, lots of theatres, lots of housing associations. And that was great. I loved being part of and building a really fast developing business. But once that had kind of all been done and we were there and we just kind of plateaued a bit in terms of, developing and getting the client base, I found myself kind of looking around for something more creative to do. So very quickly I decided to sell the business. It was a bit of a snap decision, really, more of a, I don't know, I just went with my heart, really, and sold the business back in 2010 in the June. And by the September, we had the keys for what was old Bookish on the high street, and kind of went from there. I didn't know anything about book selling apart from that I loved books, I loved reading, and just wanted to see what we could do with it. So I had an opportunity to do something that I thought that I'd really love, and I really, really do. So that's great. And it's just developed from there.
Oh, that's such a lovely story. I mean, we so often see entrepreneurs who come into something because it is their passion, and whether they then end up following it out of necessity or something that's a side hustle that grows, then it is lovely when you hear about those stories really taking off. Would you say that there were any lessons from those early days in terms of taking a passion but then actually making it successful?
I think I've always been the kind of person that's, if someone's asked me if I could do something, it would always be, yes, I can, and then figuring out how to do it after the fact. So it's really just grabbing opportunities, because you can't run a retail business in the current climate by just staying behind the counter and just expecting things to fly off the shelves. It just doesn't work that way anymore. There's such strong competition, obviously, especially in the book trade, with the big online giants and supermarkets, and lots and lots of competition. So you really have to be really innovative, really collaborative with other bookshops, and with other shops on your high street, and kind of get out there and talk to lots of people and make things happen. Things aren't just going to land on your lap. So I think that's what it's always been about for me, is making it happen. Always almost having the dare. I mean, just setting up a business in, say 2002, I was 22, and that was almost a bit of a dare. Will people take us seriously? It was quite a big industry. I was young, I was a woman. There weren't very, if any, women in the industry at that time. So yeah, it was a really big leap.
It sounds pretty audacious, but then I guess a lot of the best businesses in the world have been that way, haven't they?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'm interested there in what you said about sort of trading, in the current climate. And obviously, you are a high street retailer. In the last 2 years, you have had complete shutdown with COVID to deal with. You now have a cost of living crisis, recruitment crunch, and everything else that is going on at the moment. Talk me through what the last 2 years has been like and still is like for you as a high street business.
Absolutely. I mean, the start of 2020 was really, really grim, especially here in Crickhowell. We'd had massive floods that had turned the town into an island. The town was still recovering from that. So we had lots of houses. Luckily, our business wasn't affected, but certainly lots of our neighbouring businesses and households were. So we started off the year really badly anyway. And just as we were reeling and trying to figure out how to recover from that as a town, then the pandemic hit. And we had just been nominated as best bookshop in Wales, and that means you go on to win the national. And the week before it was jubilation with that, but also it was a case of, well, are we going to have a business? Are we going to have a bookshop left this time next year? What are we going to do? Now, as I said, the trade is really collaborative, and I spoke to a couple of booksellers, and the first thing that we did is we managed to get all of our stock online. We'd never thought that we could compete before, so we'd never really bothered apart from local books or signed copies. So we thought we'll give it a shot. We had an okay following on Twitter. I think it was about 5,000 or 6,000 at that point. And I just started going, right, we're online, we need your support. Will you help us? Will you buy books? And the orders started coming in, and our Twitter following went up. I started living on social media and just doing anything I could think of to sell books. And people really took to that. People really, really supported us. And it was just amazing, what happened in that first 6 weeks, especially. I was out on my bike delivering books locally. I'm very lucky that I can walk to work, so I didn't have to travel, so I could go into the bookshop, and I was there on my own. All my team were furloughed at that point, picking and packing, and just trying to think of any funny way, anything at all to sell a book. And then a friend of mine decided or came up with the idea of running online events. So we were the first bookshop to do online events in the pandemic. We managed to get the first one up and running in the April with Jack Monroe, who a lot of people will know for her cookery books and her fight against food poverty. And we did everything from Bernadine Evaristo, Maggie O'Farrell, Jeffrey Archer, you name them, I managed to get them on Facebook. And we did about 500 events as well as a group of 4 bookshops. It really did have a group of people to talk to and kind of cheer each other on when things were really, really tough. So yeah, it was hard, but I have to say, looking back at it now, again, I love a challenge and I love being able to innovate. And I think that really brought the best out in a lot of business owners in being able to do that. And people really wanted to support the smaller businesses. We were the ones that could get things to them, and we were the ones that were talking to suppliers, were able to get into our shops, and were able to help. So I was delivering shopping and books and prescriptions and all sorts of things during that time, and our customers just really loved the fact that we were there for them, and then they were there for us.
That's fantastic. And but you've also got the cafe and the bar and the event side of the business as well. Where did the cafe and bar come into things then? How did you decide to introduce that?
Well, it was because we moved from that smaller premises into the larger premises, and the larger premises had been a cafe and a bistro restaurant, so already had the professional kitchen there. So we thought we'd keep that on the high street because there aren't that many cafes really, considering the amount of visitors that we get in town. So we kept that. We needed somewhere that we could run our smaller events, our debut author events and book signings. The childhood dream was a bookshop. The grown-up dream was a bookshop with a bar, so that was a big tick. And again, didn't know anything about hospitality. We just thought, well, this works. Books, food, wine, conversation, meeting place. And I also really feel very strongly that a bookshop should be a meeting place for the town, a coming together of people. So that kind of, again, added to the business really, and allowed us to meet more people and have more conversations. So it was again of a way of getting more footfall through the bookshop, but it's a big building, so we would never have been able to afford to fill it with as many books as I would like to. I still now complain that I need a bigger bookshop again, but yeah, the cafe's been a really big add-on, but I have to say it's really tricksy. It's really quite a difficult one to balance, and I often find myself worrying more about the cafe than the bookshop now, because the bookshop's so well established.
Well, and quite, I mean, we know that hospitality is absolutely suffering at the moment with the recruitment crisis. Is that something that you're having to deal with? And, we've hopefully emerged from the COVID crisis, but we seem to have gone into others as well. And the nature of the business you're in, you must be at the forefront of these new crises as well.
Absolutely, yeah. The recruitment element of it is really dire. It's been really difficult. Luckily, we had some plans in place before the pandemic, and we actually are part of the prisoner recruitment program for the Open Prison in Prescoid. So we take people who have a hospitality background or who are not far from being released from prison, and we or have barista training or something along those lines, and we'll take them and give them a job, and it's exactly the same as working anywhere else. I think other employers are things like Timpsons and Tesco's and DPD. We're one of the very smallest ones that we do have people come out to, but it means that we can give them skills. They have pay slips, so they're able to open bank accounts and things when they're released. And it means that we can provide employment once they are released. So that's worked brilliantly for us, and brilliantly for the guys as well. So that's been a really wonderful thing to be part of. We've learned a lot from them, and we can give them real skills and real training. So that's been brilliant. But in terms of more casual staff, it's been tricky because a lot of people left hospitality for other areas of work after the pandemic. Hospitality is hard work. We don't open in the evenings, which is a good thing, because I think a lot of people just didn't want to do that, because work those antisocial hours. But yeah, we're struggling with staff. I mean, even this weekend, myself and Andrew are both going to be manning the cafe, which is never really the plan. But it's just something that we have to do to tide us over until we figure out what we're doing, because we're just getting so busy. I think a lot of people are choosing to stay in the UK or stay locally. So we're seeing a boom in terms of the last 3 or 4 weekends have been ridiculously busy, summer holiday busy for us. So we are worried about what the summer holidays are actually going to look like, and whether we'll have enough staff to be able to do what we do, which is kind of good service and being able to talk to people instead of just rushing around like headless chickens, and it being a stressful atmosphere rather than it being a relaxed atmosphere. So yeah, that's been really difficult. Food prices are going up. In some respects, we try and use local products as much as humanly possible, but in some respects, some things have gone up as much as 35%, which is difficult because you don't want to put your prices, you don't price yourself out of the market. But again, that's happening across the board, so it'll be affecting all hospitality businesses. So yeah, it's going to be a difficult one, I think. And as people are finding that their pockets aren't as big anymore with everything else going up, yeah, it's going to be tricky. Obviously, the other costs to us means our wage bill has increased. Our electricity and gas bill was £2,500 just last month. So it's constantly looking to where we can try to shift costs around and how we're going to make sure that we're managing it and pushing it forward rather than stalling and starting to go backwards. So yeah, it's really tricky. It really is tricky.
I'm interested in what you said there. I mean, you talk there about having to have a really laser-like focus on costs and where you can cut back on those to make sure that you stay profitable. And yet you've also talked about having to staff the cafe yourself this weekend to keep it going. So you are in that position at the moment where you're having to work on the business and in the business at the same time. how is that feeling? I mean, I'm guessing with it such an established business and clearly such a well-run business, I imagine that in better times you spend a fair amount of time working on the business and looking at the strategy. But at the moment, I suppose in this crisis, maybe that becomes a little bit of a luxury, but one that you still need.
Absolutely. I mean, it's still true of the bookshop because that's been, I suppose, going for a little bit longer, and we have a stable team, but also we have a lot of external work with schools and things that kind of keeps ticking over in the background. The cafe is just so unpredictable, and we've still got COVID. So we've got a member of staff off this week with COVID. So, that is one of the reasons why we have to sort ourselves out this weekend. I mean, obviously you don't mind, it's our business, so we don't mind kind of being, doing any kind of job. I'm quite happily being there pot washing. You have to when it's your business. But it does mean that you sometimes find it really frustrating when you want to work on it, when there's things like new menus that we want to look at, when there's training programs for our staff that we want to look at that we just can't get to. We keep thinking, right, next week's going to be a quiet week, and then something else happens to completely turn it on its head, and we just haven't got the time to be able to do that. So yeah, it can be really frustrating, and you are working all hours, early mornings, late evenings, just to kind of catch up on that business admin side of things. But it's just making sure that the core team is on it and is communicating really well and is looking after each other. I think that's the main thing as well, because what we don't want to do is get to a point where we reach burnout, and so do our team. So the other worry is looking after everybody that's working for us and making sure that they've got everything that they need to do their job, but also there's not too much pressure on them as well. So yeah, it is tough, especially now I'm kind of vocalizing it and going, wow, yeah, we're doing a lot.
It certainly sounds like, and on that point, Emma, you talked about making sure the team is looked after. How do you go about creating a really good culture? So the bookish culture, and one look at your social media gives a flavour of what that is. How do you make sure that the whole team is on board with that and the right fit, and that the culture endures even if you are in another part of the business that day or away or whatever? How do you set a good tone for the culture?
I think for us, again, it is about passion. So we've never really recruited anybody from within the bookselling world, just because of where we're based geographically. I think if we were in a big city, it would be something different. But because of where we are, we've never really recruited. So people have always had an opportunity to develop into their role and to look at areas that are interesting to them. So they're always quite, come to us with a passion, but also you never know what's going to happen day to day. We're not in an office, we are in the high street, but also we work in a trade that we could get an email saying, could you do an event with, it could be anybody, could you do this, could you do that? We had a celebrity author come in a couple of days ago just to drop off the new proof of their new book. We've had some school children in this morning because there's a reading promotion with the Welsh Books Council. So I think because there's something always just about to happen to get excited about, there's always, I suppose, I don't want to call it a carrot because that's not the case. There's just always something fresh and new to look forward to. And is key, which is difficult when you're running such a big organisation with trying to just take time happy with what they're doing, or if they've got any ideas or what they want to work on next. And I think we do quite a lot of social things together as well outside of work, which I think is lovely. So yeah, it's just trying to create that team that are always kind of bringing ideas to you instead of you trying to steer the ship single-handedly. This isn't a business where it's just me telling people what to do. I love it when people come to me and go, I've got an idea, I want to do this. And if I'm able to go, absolutely, let's go for it, then yeah, that's really exciting.
You mentioned earlier collaboration on the high street in Crickhowell and how that really came to the fore in the pandemic, and also collaboration in the book trade. But I'm interested to hear from you about the way that the high street in Crickhowell has come together on a campaign called Totally Locally, and then ultimately culminating in Crickhowell winning a Great British High Street Award in 2018. Tell me a little bit about the work that's gone into galvanising the businesses that are on the high street, so that you are using the collective power of those fabulous independent businesses to make Crickhowell a brilliant place to live, work and visit. And what lessons are in that for other rural high streets?
Yeah, I think we're really lucky in Crickhowell that we have the vast majority. I think we've only got one national chain here, which is just around the corner, so we pretend that it's not on the high street. But you've got a lot of family businesses. You've also got a lot of businesses that are owner occupied, so we haven't got any absentee landlords. So that's a really great base for people who care about how the town operates, how the town looks, and the kind of welcome that we give to visitors. So you have, if you go into the high street in Crickhowell, it takes a long time because you will always be having a chat with somebody, whether you're local or not. I have so many friends that visit and go, God, I've just spent an hour and a half just going to the butcher's. So, I think that comes across as soon as you come here, that it's a really friendly place. And it's difficult when you're working so hard in your business, but I think I think it was 2013, I first came across Totally Locally, and I thought it could work really well in Crickhowell. So we brought that in on the £5 message, which was brilliant marketing by Totally Locally, and able to get across just how important it is to the local economy for people to support and spend on their high street, and also what good value for money it can be. So it's a great promotional campaign for independent businesses, but it also gets independent businesses to look at what everybody else is doing and to support everybody else. So when people come in and go, could you recommend this? Can you recommend that? There's certain things in the cafe that we don't do. We don't do fried breakfast, for example. So people come in, oh, we don't do fried breakfast. No, but I know a great place that does, if you just go there. And so many people say, well, it's a bit like that Miracle on 34th Street, where you're directing people out of the business, but you're directing them onto other businesses in the high street, so the town doesn't lose somebody to the next town because they can't get a fry up. So it's about making sure that you're also really championing the high street as a whole, not just your business. It's not just about you. And that's been a key message, I think, that it's kind of that hold together stronger element of it.
For anybody listening who isn't familiar with Totally Locally, can you explain to us what it is and how it works? So if another town is interested, how would they go about getting involved with it?
So there's a big website now. It's a big movement, so you can register your interest to get a town kit. And I know there's quite a lot of bids that have done it, and some town councils, but it's very much based on the circular local economy. It isn't any way of anybody to, I suppose, make any money. Or one business make any money. It's about promoting the whole town. So you can get your town kit, and then you can do, there's a Fiver Fest, I think it's happening at the moment. We haven't taken part this time, but we have in the past, where businesses can put on deals for £5, promoting that £5 message. So if somebody spends £5 in the butcher's on their Sunday lunch instead of in the supermarket each week, then it's worth X amount to the local economy, and that's a really strong message. And then there's lots of ways that you can go about supporting it. So some towns have done markets, some towns we've done a big Christmas market, which has always been brilliant and really collaborative, and a big Christmas fair. There's a tenor trail because there's some businesses that struggle to collaboratively working together, but also with other groups within the town. So be it Rotarians, be it Roundtable, be it the local schools. One of the absolute joys I had when we were preparing to be judged for the town award was that we put a shout out on social media, and about 200 people came to clean the town up, to do some weeding and some brushing and some, just making it sparkly, and just people turned up with cakes, and people, it's about loving where you live, because I think if you have that little spark and things going on and people caring about it, then it does make such a massive difference. And then it starts making a massive difference to how we're talking to each other, and how we're working, and how we're working as a community. I think people have spent so much time being channeled away down kind of social media and into work and commuting, that they've stopped caring about their local community quite as much. So it's a way of getting that back and getting that real town feel back. And it's just really worked here. People really took to it.
Emma, you've talked a lot about the power of community. You've talked about having schools into the bookshop, and you've talked about the scheme you run with the prison, and you were even delivering prescriptions to the local community during lockdown. So the community is clearly really central to the business. To what extent do you think that initiatives like Totally Locally and the collaboration between the businesses on the high street is central to that community spirit?
Yeah, absolutely huge. I mean, we're really lucky in Crickhowell to have so many independent businesses that have always played a big part in the community. But I think Totally Locally really helped revive that, because some of the businesses have been here for a very long time. So you kind of get into a groove. But also I think it really demonstrated how important it is to get out from behind that till and have those conversations with people, because all of these schemes that have happened in Crickhowell are the result of conversations. So, for example, the prison scheme would never have come about unless I'd had a conversation in the shop with a customer. And it's the same with Totally Locally. I can't even remember how I first heard about it, but I'm sure it would have been the result of a conversation that I had. So it's just so important. I know it's really difficult, and there's a huge amount involved in running a business at the moment. But just spending a little bit of time walking around your own high street, talking to other business owners, can be, lead to that next big idea, can lead to that next big project, and can have a massive impact on your business. And it also means, especially within the pandemic, that you're not alone in it. As a high street, we were all there for each other as well.
So we've had recent figures from Welsh Government that shows that tourist numbers are going up across Wales. And we've obviously got this pattern of staycations arising out of us not being able to travel anywhere for a while during the pandemic. What are your hopes for Crickhowell and for rural towns in general over the coming months and years?
I think the rise in staycations is fantastic. We certainly saw a big rise in the numbers last summer, and that has continued Easter and half term. So we're looking forward to a really busy summer. So there's lots of opportunities there. And we're finding a lot of people are traveling, an hour to get to us now. I mean, we are a destination in terms of the walking and the countryside here. So we're really lucky as to being in a beautiful area. So people want to kind of travel and come and enjoy the area and enjoy the scenery. So it's all about opportunity. So there's going to be a lot of people around. It's a case of how best do we service them? Are there enough places for them to stay? Are there enough places for them to go to? As I said, there's not that many cafes in Crickhowell, and we've got some fantastic pubs and restaurants, but have we got enough? The big thing here in Crickhowell is parking, and being able to service that. So there's always going to be issues that we need to look at. But again, if you're part of a really strong community, then you can look at that as a whole rather than just worry about it as an individual business. So yeah, I hope that people will still keep coming to us. I hope that we'll be able to, encourage them to support the businesses, and obviously part of that is spend money, and that we will be here to be able to support the whole community for years to come. So we just need to keep on working hard at that, and not just look, just as I said, not just look at our own businesses, but what's happening with everybody else's. And I think the big thing for me is having conversations with people who are being really quiet, because those are the people that are possibly struggling for either inspiration, ideas, or really worrying about their own businesses. So I think it makes a huge difference just to talk to each other. I think sometimes it can be really lonely being a business person, and it doesn't have to be. there is a community there to talk to. So I think out of everything that I've learned over the last 2 years, is making sure that you're really vocal about what's happening within your business. You're really open and honest about it, and you can share those experiences with everybody else, because you'll be surprised how many people will really appreciate those conversations.
It really all does come down to conversation, doesn't it, Emma?
Yeah.
And I've really thoroughly enjoyed our conversation today. So thank you so much to my guest, Emma Corfield Walters, owner of Bookish in Crickhowell.
Thank you.